taking a peek at the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Acura RDX. This is the only setup that you're going to find, and I love it because it's got traditional gauges with a tiny little digital cluster screen too. But let's dive in and I'll show you everything that you need to know. The first thing is that the steering wheel inside of the ride is going to be manual telescoping. So it doesn't matter which trim level you're in. So in, out, up and down to find that perfect position. Once you do, click it in order to lock it back into place. The seat also has the option for driver's seat memory. I know it's not the steering wheel, but still. So you can set your driver's seat up the way that you'd like to. And once you've done that, you're just going to hit set and then either 1 or 2 for it to remember your own personal profile. It's a benefit there, obviously, if you've got multiple people driving. Steering wheel inside of the ride is going to be heated. Along the top left-hand side there, or I guess top right of the left pad is going to be your button. So you can toggle it on this way, and it's heated all the way around. And there are so many different buttons, so we'll save the buttons for last. The car has paddle shifters. So you've got your minus on the left side, plus on the right-hand side. So if you wanted to drop gears in order to be able to shoot up your RPM gauge to get some speed to go forward faster, that's available. If you needed to rely on engine braking, you could hit the down button there in order to be able to drop gears too, in order to slow the vehicle down faster. But if you've never used paddle shifters before and you want to actually know how they're used and the best way to use them, check down in the description of this video. I've put together a pretty comprehensive walkthrough explaining how paddles work, when you want to use them, etc. Stick along the left-hand side, you've got a few different options here. So you've got different light modes. So what I'd recommend is being in the auto mode. And the big reason why is because if the vehicle recognizes that high beams and things like that are needed, it turns them on automatically. If somebody's oncoming, turns them off before turning them right back on. But you saw there, so you can't permanently lock your high beams out when you're in the auto mode. You have to be in the headlamp mode instead, push away to turn those high beams on, pull towards you to turn them off, but you can flash out your high beams regardless of the mode that you're in. And then from there, you can also turn fog lamps on, off if you've got them. Then you've got your blinkers, obviously, from there. Along the right-hand side are going to be for your wipers. So 1 down is going to be your main intermittent mode. When you're in that 1 level down, you could then use the little rocker switch in the middle in order to adjust out how fast or slow rain's hitting that windshield. And you go to crazy modes too if you'd like to. Along the right-hand side, you can also adjust your rear wiper. There's also a rear camera wiper, so if you push and hold down, that's going to get the rear wiper fluid going, and that can also clear off the rear camera for you too. There's a button on the tip of the right stick, and that button is going to bring up your front-facing camera, and then from there, if you push it again, it's going to get you your side-by-side views and your 360 view and off. If you shift yourself into reverse, you've got your backup camera as the main cam, along with your 360 view too. Back into park in order to turn that off, then you could push again in order to turn that camera off completely. But pretty straightforward there. Now, if you want to walk through on the infotainment system, you'll find that down in the description of this video. But let's go through some different buttons. So the ones on the right side here, so the right pad, with the exception of this little feller. So this guy here is going to be for cruise control. You can toggle cruise control on by pushing the button here. And once that's toggled on, once you're at the speed that you'd like, you're going to push down in order to set your speed. You could then increase or decrease 1 kilometer, 1 mile per hour by pushing up or down. If you push and hold up or push and hold down, it'll bring you to the nearest 5 or 0. So let's say if you set it at 47, push and hold up, it'll bring you to 50, 55, 60, etc. Push and hold down, it'll do the opposite. You can hit the brake to cancel your speed. You can hit cancel to cancel your speed. Then you can push up in order to resume your previously set speed. This little feller is a distance indicator, so it's how close or far are you away from the vehicle that's in front of you. So that's for your adaptive cruise control. So let's say if you've got it set at 60, car in front of you slows down, yours is going to brake based off of how close or far you've got it set here. Level 1 is okay on just residential streets. Stop and go traffic is arguable. And then level 2 or 3 on highways or interstates, again, just depending on your own comfort level. If you're using adaptive cruise in slippery, snowy conditions, you ideally want to be 4 away at the very, minimum, for sure. But one neat thing is that if you take that same gap adjustment button, if you push and hold it, that's going to turn you into traditional cruise. So there's either adaptive or traditional. Traditional is your old school cruise. So you set it at 100. If the car in front of you slows down, yours does not brake. So you've just got to pay attention. But I'm a bigger fan of using the adaptive cruise control system in every street. But if you want to walk through and a live demo of using cruise control, you'll find that in the description of this video. There's also this little guy, and that one is going to be a lane keep or lane follow assist. So if the vehicle recognizes the lane markings, that icon is going to go green. And then it's not full self-driving, but if you lose focus for a second, it's going to keep you nice and balanced in your lane. It's a phenomenal system, so you can keep your hands off the wheel for about 10 to 12 seconds or so before you get a message inside of the cluster saying that steering is required. But all of these systems work really well in tandem. And then you've got this rocker to move between all of the different options here. And then the rocker along this side in order to move between options in your head-up display. So the buttons along the left side, this one is your power button. So that's going to turn audio on or off. You can also use the switch along the top right under the screen in order to adjust your volume or toggle audio on or off that way. Adjust your volume there. There's a voice command prompt where you can navigate using your voice. You can change radio stations and a number of other things. So definitely recommend getting a hang of that one. If you've got a phone connected, so Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, you do a long push and hold on that button. That's going to bring up either your Siri or your Google Assistant. And then you've got an app button, back button, and then a little scroll wheel specifically for the head-up display, which we'll touch on last. Down by your left knee, so you could adjust the head-up display if your vehicle has the head-up display, so you can tilt it. You can also increase, decrease the brightness. I always recommend keeping yourself on the max available brightness though. There's the park sensing system, so that beeping that you get as you get closer to obstacles, you can toggle that on or off. You can turn on your windshield defroster. And then from there, there's a hot button press to get to all of your safety settings. Toggle traction control on or off. There's your brake hold here too. So if you come down to a complete stop, take your foot off the brake, the vehicle's not going to move. And then there's also your electronic parking brake. So to turn it on, all you're going to do is push in. To turn it off, you hit the brake and then pull out in order to make that happen. Then, taking a peek at the cluster screen inside of the ride. So you've got your tachometer off to the left-hand side, speedometer off to the right, and these are traditional locked-in gauges, so not digital. The icon on the top left-hand side is for your safety systems. So there's, again, that button by your left knee. You could toggle any of these different safety systems off if you want to. So the lane keeping system, things like that. I just honestly recommend keeping all of these things turned on. It just makes the most sense. If you've got your adaptive cruise control system or regular cruise toggled on off, that lane keeping system, etc., the screen here is going to look slightly different. You've got your current speed limit based off of the road that you're currently on. And then if we were to hop out for a second, you've got your engine temperature along the left side, your fuel gauge along the right-hand side there. And then you've currently got your direction that you're facing, your total odometer, the gear that you're in, outside temperature too. So let's go through, and we're going to use the little rocker switch along the right side of the steering wheel to move between all of our options. So you've got your trip A. If you swipe across, you can get your A versus B counters. In order to reset, if you push and hold, that's going to highlight and then center you back out to 0 if you'd like. There are a few different ways that you can set it up in the infotainment system as well. If you wanted to have it set so that your trip counter is going to reset every time you turn the car off or every time that you refuel. There's also navigation, so that's just a basic compass. But if you've got an active route going inside of the infotainment system, so I'm just going to show you here. Let's just go to a quick resend and then just search. So it's not full map and cluster, but you've at least got turn-by-turn directions that are available inside of this screen. Kind of nice. Cancel back out, brings you back to a bit of basic compass. You've got your basic maintenance information, so your oil level, which you could reset if you're doing things out yourself inside of the infotainment system. Moving down, you can see your tire pressure, so slightly out of whack there. And your all-wheel drive handling, so you can see which axle is getting which amount of power. You can see if there are people sitting down, whether or not they're plugged in. There's a basic minimalist look too, so if you don't like all of the extra stuff, you're just like a blank screen there. Down to all of your safety info, so if you push in, you could toggle all of these systems off. So the first one is your road departure mitigation. So if you start to veer over into another lane, you'll get a little vibration letting you know. There's your blind spot system, so if somebody enters the blind spot on either side, it'll let you know. The beeping that you get. Your low speed brake controls there, your collision mitigation. So if you're potentially going to get into a collision, it can give you a heads up. So you can toggle these ones off. I don't recommend it, but you could if you really wanted to. And then you could also show different things. And this is specifically your sport gauges. So hold on, watch this. If it's always on, you can see your turbo boost as well as your G meter too. That's going to be when you're in the sport mode. I normally just recommend say sport mode, because if you change out to your sport mode now, like that. So you've got a few different primary modes, but inside of the sport mode, it brings up those gauges. I just think that makes sense. That looks really good too. I like it. And then moving down to the bottom, you can also change up your measurement units. So do you want to be in either US or, and you can see there, so it's obviously not going to change the main gauge just because that's locked into place. But if you wanted to change out everything along the bottom there, so your distance, etc., you can do that if you'd like. There's some buttons just behind the right stick, and that's going to let you increase or decrease the brightness of the cluster screen. Then taking a peek at the head-up display inside of the ride. So if you've got it, it would show up there. The button down by your left knee, you could move the head-up display up or down if you wanted to make it easier to see, just based off of your own height. You can adjust the brightness, and I always just recommend keep yourself in maximum brightness, because if you wear polarized sunglasses, it can actually be pretty tricky to see the head-up display. Yeah, you can see there. It is slightly visible with polarized glasses. It just is trickier to see. You can hit the app button along the steering wheel, and that's going to bring up this little screen. So you could select between different apps that are available. So navigation, if you wanted to look at gas stations, point of interest icons, and things like that, you can select it right here. So if we just select one of these.
Now turn left.
So you can see you've got your turn-by-turn directions there. If you move back into your app screen again, you could, let's see, if we go to navigation, cancel route, and that just cancels the route out for you. So pretty straightforward. Hitting the app screen brings you into different views. So you can select your driving view. So you could move left or right in order to be able to select different views. I just go all of the available options there. Let's see here. You can customize apps. So what do you want showing up inside of that screen? So do you want all of these showing up, yay or nay? You can reorder them if you'd like to. So if you wanted them in a different order, you could. So all you do is select, and then you can move it up or down as necessary. So simple change. And then you've got all of your different sources. So Sirius XM, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, AM, FM, USB audio. If we hop into any of these, like FM radio, you can see all of the stations that you previously favorited, or you can swipe across to get to all of your recently listened to stations. And that's the same, whether it's Sirius XM, AM, FM. So it's kind of neat that that's available. So if we go Sirius XM, recents versus favorited stations. I know that that is a lot of information, but that's everything you need to know about the steering wheel as well as the cluster inside of the Acura RDX.